Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for Bunkers, Everything You Ever Wanted to Know and More, sponsored by Links Bridges. Before we begin, please reference the resource area on the left side of your screen for any downloadable handouts. If you have a question you would like to ask the presenters, type into the Ask the Presenter box located on the left side of your screen. Now, please welcome our presenters, Jerry Lemons, ASGCA, GCBA President Judd Duininck with Duininck Golf, and Adam Moeller with the USGA. Take it away, Jerry.
Hello, I'm Jerry Lemons. Today, Adam, Judd, and I will, in an hour, teach you everything you wanted to know about bunkers and more. Let's begin. Golfers, architects, and superintendents have a love-hate relationship with bunkers. We enjoy the beauty and how they enhance the playability of our golf courses, but we hate the cost. Dubbed the money pit, our golfers want perfect tour quality bunkers that drain well, have great color, and are consistent. Often, 20% of a maintenance budget is spent on bunker maintenance alone, and bunkers can eat up labor, affect staff morale, and clubs often say they become the biggest complaint on the golf course. We play golf, bunker shots that is, on sand. And no matter what construction techniques are used, golfers' opinions on bunkers is how they think the sand plays. And opinions often vary amongst handicap levels. Sand is the key in playability and can drive design and maintenance practices. Choosing the right sand can impact bunker quality more than any one item. No golfer cares how you build it, but they care about the shot and the cost. There are numerous characteristics to consider when selecting bunker sand: the cost, the infiltration rate, angle repos or how steep you can build a bunker face, particle sizes and shapes, the depths needed, resistant to fried egg lies through the pentrometer, pH, color, which on occasion gets more attention than what it maybe should, crusting, and overall playability. Angle repos, I mentioned. A pile of sand or gravel or marbles or anything stacks in a cone shape, and we can measure that angle of repos with a digital level or a phone app to determine the steepest grade on which that particular sand can be used on a bunker face. Round sands like marbles will not stack near as steep as angular sands. So sand selection has a big impact on the design of the inside slopes of a bunker. Judd will talk about the various construction methods shortly, but no construction method will hold sand on a steeper face than its angle repos. The sand will slide down from gravity. Sand does not stay on a steep face because of what's underneath it. One of the key characteristics that impacts the playability of a particular bunker sand is moisture. Water holding capacity of a particular sand can leave a bunker very firm or even fluffy. Moisture holding capacity and the infiltration rate of that sand plus maintenance practices have a big impact on how a particular bunker sand plays on that particular day at that particular hour. For more information on bunker sand selection, please join us for an in-depth panel discussion Thursday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Let's talk about cost, getting rid of your money pits. It's all about how far your money goes. In design, construction, or maintenance, how much you must spend on bunkers is probably the reason why you're here today. Major area bunker cost, well, it's sand. The cost of sand can vary considerably from location to location, mostly due to transportation costs. One might ask, do I use a lower cost local sand or haul in a more expensive angular sand? Sand choice can drive the design of the bunker as well as the quantity. Obviously, a golf course with only a handful of flat bunkers will have a lower initial construction cost, lower annual maintenance cost than one with, say, 100,000 square feet of steep bunkers. So the specifications, designs, and construction methods are key to the performance of your bunker sand, as well as your budget and the life of the sand on your golf course. Quantity. It has the greatest impact on long-term cost. Location, sizes, and how many. Bunker design, strategy, aesthetics, and shot value, these are your architect's pieces of the puzzle. And it can vary. But lately, we've seen a trend toward reduction and relocation of bunkers. Internal drainage, the maximum percent must be driven by that sand selected angle of repose. Drainage, first drainage around the bunkers is a key. We don't want any more surface water entering the bunker than necessary. We want good internal drainage inside the bunker to move the water out of the sand to the pipe. And finally, we need a good exit strategy for that water to get out of the bunker. Judd will talk about construction methods and various liners and edges that are being used today, but I emphasize the most important purpose of using any kinds of these materials under the sand is to assist in drainage and reduce sand movement. This increases the sand's life and performance. Sand depth matters too, and it may need to be adjusted. A bunker that is 10 inches deep of sand will be much drier and softer than one with only 2 inches of sand. We could get into a long discussion on placement and strategy. We certainly love to talk about placing bunkers to make holes more strategic and more enjoyable and memorable, but we really just don't have that kind of time here. There's certainly no question that placement, size, shape, and depth are an important part of the architecture which makes a hole great. But due to the distance variables of so many different levels of players, fairway bunker relevance is the most difficult thing we can do in bunker design. Even proper tee placement is no resolve for a hole to play the same for every player. Often, you will see situations like this with numerous bunkers scattered. It's a very good plan to add cost. The argument for one bunker has been made. It is possible that one bunker can have a great impact on the strategy of how a golf hole is played. There are numerous variables surrounding the building of a bunker and what its future impact on cost can be. It may not be just digging a hole and adding sand. The shaping of the bunker, the grass slopes, water movement can all be impactful to maintenance cost. In design, future maintenance bunkers budgets should always be considered, not only for the bunker sand surface itself, but for the turf grass around the bunkers. Machine versus hand mowing, labor has become a critical item in most every budget, so doing anything to help reduce hand labor is a plus. Proper grass selection for edges and slopes should be thought out. The ability to maintain strong turf edges is critical in reducing contamination. Steep faces around bunkers need sunlight. So get out your Sunshade Compass app before you start looking at the different grasses. To understand what to design internally, let's visit what we know causes bunker sand to fail. We call this Hydrology 101. Surface water loading and erosion causes contamination. Water can move soil and sand very easily. In heavy rain events and irrigation cycles, sand can reach filled capacity, meaning the pore spaces are filled with water. When this happens on slopes and the water cannot unload, the sand will slide down the slope. It's a mini landslide or a radial slide. Over time, these contaminants slow down the infiltration rate of the bunker and the bunker sand and cause the sand to drain slowly. The end result is what I call the biggest waste of resources in the golf industry: shoveling sand back up onto bunker faces and pumping water out of bunkers. You get nothing for this added cost. I mentioned the three most important elements in golf course construction. They're drainage, drainage, and drainage. Surface drainage first. Water is powerful, and fast sheet water can move sand with ease. So in the shaping process, it's important that we redirect as much surface water away from the bunkers as we possibly can. It is possible in the design and construction process to move water away from a bunker and still allow a golf ball to enter the bunker. Internal drainage. How many drain lines do you need? Spacing is critical to get the water out of the sand into the pipe. Typically, these are placed 15 feet on center, but the construction materials and methods used can impact spacing. Frustrated superintendents have tried everything: installing perimeter lines at the top to slow down washouts, and then they've tried many feet of drain lines and even big pipes, not realizing the excessive cost. But the culprit often is contaminated sand, which won't perk as fast as it used to, and the contaminants can be removed and is a band-aid for the fix. A 4-inch drain pipe can drain over one acre of area from a flow standpoint, but you still need to get the water into the pipe quickly. And it's also important to test the gravel going into the trenches to make sure that the sand bridges with that gravel. Too big of a rock and the sand can often get contaminated from migration in no time at all. Is this effective? External drain lines must also function. We want to make sure that we get water out of the bunker no matter what. Flushing and checking the outfall drain lines should be a part of routine maintenance. Be sure things like roots or sand haven't clogged the drain lines. Obviously, this doesn't allow water to flow. Flat pipes can also be an option in bunkers, as we see them often used on rocky sites. But the flow of a flat pipe only has the capacity of about 27 gallons a minute. So it's much less than a 4-inch pipe is. Any pipe that is surrounded by sand instead of gravel is going to have a slow perk rate into the pipe. As we talk about construction specifications and liners, reducing sand movement, improving drainage, and reducing contamination are the goals in extending that sand life. There is no one product on the market that solves all problems for every bunker in all parts of the world. Judd?
Thanks, Jerry. If you, for those of you who didn't catch some of the key points of Jerry before we go into the construction methods, he mentioned sand. No doubt, the right sand is so important. The drainage of not going into the bunker, surface drainage, very, very important. We see it all the time in construction. And more than anything, having a real quality bunker liner, you'll kind of find that that's just an add-on to make your life easy. So as we get into that, feel free to use your pop-up button, ask some questions, whatever it might be, as we go through this. But we're going to look at the different types of construction. And the very first type is the conventional construction. With the conventional construction, you're going to find that it's basically using the existing subgrade that's already the same material that's already native to whatever area that you're at, and putting a drain line in it. Anybody who is probably listening right now, you have probably had a bunker in your lifetime that has been the conventional method. And that's why you're here. What can I do? What can be different? So the conventional method is really kind of your basic. We're going to start with the basic and work towards a more advanced type of a liner. There is a place for the conventional method. Flat bunkers that are where budget is very, very important. You know, it's what you may have. You can use a good quality sand even in a conventional method and be successful. But it really comes down to what your bunkers are shaped like, the area of the country that you're in, the types of rains that you get, whatever it may be. There's a right bunker liner for each golf course. If you look at this one, in this picture, you're going to find that this bunker is newly constructed. There's not even sand in it yet, but you can see the erosion that's already happening in this bunker, and that's just from a heavy rain. And you can see the silt that is washed towards the gravel drain line. This is a conventional bunker, but despite that, you won't even be able to drain this thing. You're going to have sand due to the slopes behind here off heavy rains. So as Jerry mentioned, the bunker design is very critical, especially in a conventional bunker. Drain tiles functioning. I've been on projects where people are wondering, should I replace my drain tile? If you're going into a bunker renovation and you're asking yourself, man, what do I do? Oh, my tiles work great. You know, they're fixed. There's nothing wrong with them. We've seen that a lot, and I would just really challenge you that, yeah, maybe, but if you're going to spend the dollars on a bunker renovation, you should highly consider replacing all your drain tiles. I've been on projects such as Hazeltine National, where we started out and we found drain tiles that were completely full of roots, and they didn't know that. And we ended up having to go back and replace all the drain tiles after we got early into the project. The decision was made to replace all of them. By far, the best decision that they made after they put their liner in. The next type of liner from a cost standpoint would be a sod liner. A sod liner, we're seeing some of them, we're seeing a few more of them. You know, the whole key you're going to find with a liner is there a spot for the water to run? Is there a spot for the water to run between the subgrade and the bottom of the sand? With a sod liner, there's some. This is going to really prevent contamination. Is it going to stop you from having to shovel sand? Probably not. In most situations, a sod liner is more of a contaminant protection than anything else. The next type of bunkers that we're going to liners that we're going to talk about are more of a solid and impervious one. So there's multiple out in the market. These types of liners kind of came into the industry, I would say, maybe 15 years ago, and maybe 20 years ago now even, where we saw people who were very frustrated. How do I How do I stop the contamination? That was their main concern. The big frustration was, God, my bunkers, they're just getting beat up. I'm getting a lot of contamination. If I can stop the contamination, then I can deal with pushing sand, was their thought. And with that, a lot of the products, the clingstones, the anchor sands, the bento fix, Portland cement, Staylock, Linebacker, all these products came out, and their primary role was to cut down on contamination. So we'll look at each one of these. Portland cement. So Portland cement, the process of putting the Portland cement down is you get your bunker all finished. Once your bunker is finished, you kind of use a rake and you move the soil around on the top of the subgrade in the top, maybe quarter, half inch, something like that. And then you mix in, dump Portland cement and kind of rake it in, water it in, and it gets hard. And really what you have by the time when you're finished is a smooth cement bottom in the bottom of your bunker. Staylock. Staylock is more of a product with binder in it, that again you rake up the subgrade, you spray it on, and it holds the soil in place. That's what it does. Kind of a lot of these bunker liners you'll find, they really cover kind of the top half inch and hold things in place. Clingstone, similar as well. Spray on liner, you scarify the top a little bit of your subgrade, spray it on. It's a very thin liner that again in the short term will protect the bunker from any when the sand goes down to the bottom and slides away, it's probably going to protect for some of the erosion that happens in the subgrade of the bunker. Gunite, similar to a really putting concrete in the bottom of the bunker. Spray it on with a gunite machine. As you can see in the photo, you'll see that there's maybe a 1 inch depth, 3/4 inch depth over top of the subgrade. And really, again, back to protecting the bunker from eroding. Soilworks, very similar as well, just a different brand of spraying on the subgrade again, holding the subgrade in place. Linebacker and Stabilizer, these are mixed up products, mixed in a cement mixer, and they're sprayed on to the bunker. You can see with the upper right hand photo, that is about 1.5 inches. You can see the boards on there. And the product's about 1.5 inches thick. It doesn't move. The sand lays right on top of it. Linebacker the same as well. Both protect the subgrade from eroding. But all these products that you just have seen, they really are no different than a swimming pool or a bathtub at the end of the day. They don't let the water into the liner itself. It has to run down the liner all the way to the pipe before it can exit. And that's where you're going to find that once your sand, as you heard from Jerry early on, once the sand becomes saturated, if it doesn't have a place to go, what's going to happen is you're going to have a radial slide. When you have your radial slide, the sand slides off the top of the bunker, and you're going to end up with clean sand, but you're going to end up with your crew out there having to go shovel, rake, do all those things. We've also seen with some of these products that as the sand trap goes in and around these bunkers, that they'll catch it a little bit, that the scarifiers will catch it, they'll pop it up. And so once it starts to flake off, now we start to see some of the erosion again. The next type of liner that we started to see, again, maybe more like 10, 15 years ago, were the geotextile fabrics. Sand Trapper, Sand Mat, Bunker Wall, Bunker Solutions, Highline are all these geotextile type fabrics. These types of fabrics actually did provide a little bit of room for the water to run. So as you can see in the photos, the liners placed across the whole bottom of the bunker. These liners are probably ranging from 1/4 inch to maybe 3/4 inch thick, depending on the brand or the model of liner that you would use. These liners, actually, in the day when they came out, I thought they did a pretty good job. They do provide an opportunity for the water to run between the sand and the subgrade. If you look at the top photo, I think it's a good example to be able to look at and see, is there room in between the subgrade and the sand? And these liners do provide that. Some of the challenges, you get a lot of staples in them. And in the upper Midwest, the areas of the country, the Northeast where it freezes, you're never going to defeat frost. You can be told, oh, I can put down, some liquid nails to hold it down. I've never in my life seen liquid nails be able to hold frost out. I know if frost can push a footing out of the ground on a house, it's probably going to be able to push a staple out of the ground as well. Then the next type, kind of a pretty big gap between the conventional fabric liners, were Bunker Solutions. But before I get into that, I'm just going to jump back just a hair here real quick. One of the challenges with these fabric liners were animals starting to dig them up. What I always say is, do you have your most talented operator on your crew on the Sand Pro? I think we all know that answer. Probably not. And with that, it's oftentimes a young high school student, college student, and their job is go rake the bunkers. And these guys are out and they've got their scarifiers down, and maybe there's not room in the budget to be checking sand depths all the time. So you got your high school student out there, he's just spinning circles, he's got the scarifiers down, there's a little bit of contamination, maybe even from some of the wind and just air particles that are in there. He's stirring up these bunkers, and what does he do? He catches a liner. And once you catch the first one, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And that's kind of been the challenge on some of these fabric liners over the years. So to combat that, Bunker Solutions came out with a product that is an artificial turf. So very similar to the fabric liners, but a step up I would consider would be Bunker Solutions. Bunker Solutions is, if you can look at an AstroTurf or a type product where it's got a rubber bottom in it and the fibers stick up in the air a little bit, the fibers provide that area where the water can run. It can drain through the sand into the fibers hold up the sand, and gives a drainage layer for the water to run. This too is a bathtub style where everything has to get to the pipe. There's a little bit more pipe involved in this type of a liner. But it's a type of liner that I think if you're not going to mess with your bunkers a lot, it's had pretty good success in its time. It's maybe more on the high end from a price standpoint, you'll see, but longevity seems to be fairly solid. If you hook it, it's very difficult to hook. It'd be pretty hard to pull out, take a sand pro out on a turf football field, an artificial turf football field, and catch it and pull it out. As we talked, most of these bunkers have staples, which are a real challenge in the wrong climates. Now the types of liners that we're seeing today, they're more of a porous base type liner. Some of the examples, billy bunker, capillary concrete, matrix binder, the new billy bunker, Flexscape, they're more of a porous base type method. As with all bunkers, the whole key is drainage, but these new ones provide even more drainage than the other ones. The first one on the market back in the day was the original billy bunker. The original billy bunker involved quite a bit of fabric, a layer of gravel, and a layer of rock, another layer of fabric to hold down the contamination, but it allowed, with the whole entire gravel base across the whole bunker, provided excellent drainage over the years. The challenge with the original billy bunker too was it had the fabric liner, and it would end up, if there wasn't good quality control on sand movement, sand depths by the superintendent, sand depths from the raking of the bunker to golfers playing in it, changing sand depths, maintaining those sand depths is key in any liner that you're going to use. So the blinder and chrome rubber, all these liners you're going to find are fairly similar, that they all have a product in there that binds them together. And the chrome rubber one is really just a pieces of chrome rubber that are all bound together with the same product. They all use similar products to hold their particles together. SandGuard is not one that I've personally used, but is out there, and it's a stone rubber from my understanding. Flexscape is a little different, where Flexscape probably is a little more in the fabric type liner category, where it comes in rolls. You can see the rolls in the picture. I think they are about 42-inch wide rolls, 40 or 42-inch wide rolls that they come in. And instead of being more of a wool fiber type product, Flexscape is a PVC, and you can see it looks like, we call it the spaghetti liner, if you've seen it out there. Flexscape, what it does is it allows the water to drain through the layer. It's about a 1/2 inch thick. Does a pretty good job of letting the water drain through, and what it doesn't do is it does not allow for the sand trap to hook it as in nearly the manner that some of the other early on products had. So we've seen a lot more success in the Flexscape than we did in the other liners. Capillary concrete. Capillary concrete, again, very similar to some of the other products. It is a concrete product. It is a bowl, but at the same time, although it looks like a bowl, the capillary concrete lets the water drain into the concrete, and it's a couple inches thick, and the water drains through the material down to the drain line itself. So instead of having one drain line or multiple drain lines for this to drain to, the whole bottom of the bunker, wherever there's capillary concrete, is an actual drainage bed in itself. Then we have porous asphalt. Porous asphalt, again, very similar to cap concrete. It's got the polymers in it. It's the polymers that are holding the rock together, but even though it's got the polymers in it, it's porous enough that it allows the drainage to go through it. Capillary concrete, better billy bunker, this porous asphalt, all very similar. I've seen it where one of my, somebody that I know has got a driveway made out of, quote, porous asphalt, very similar to this, and the water actually goes through the driveway down into the sand of the subgrade of what they have. And the county actually allows that for an impervious surface, or for a pervious surface for their square footage of their lot. So it actually, if a county is looking at it, it does allow the water to go through. So that's telling you that the water does go through it actually. And the next one is Better Billy Bunker. Better Billy Bunker is pea gravel, a whole 2-inch bed of pea gravel laid across the entire bottom of the bunker. Looks no different than a green, but it's 2 inches at the end of the day. And you ask yourself, well, gal, I don't want to put pea gravel in the bottom of my bunker. Well, Better Billy Bunker allows with the polymer spray, the Better Billy Bunker polymer spray to be sprayed on it. It holds the rock together. It goes down about 3/4 of an inch, and it really just binds the rock together. If I had a slab of it here, it'd be very difficult for me to even break it in half. That's how strong the Better Billy Bunker rock is. And so the entire, when it rains, the sand gets saturated, whether it's Better Billy Bunker, cap concrete, the sand gets saturated. The whole bottom of the bunker is all one big drainage area. It allows the water to drain out of the sand. It hits this liner, and the liner being a couple inches thick is an entire drainage bed for that water to be released. Sometimes you wonder, how can it not slide? Where's that radial slide? Why doesn't it happen? It doesn't happen because of this entire base of gravel. It doesn't have to run anywhere. The water's allowed to leave the sand immediately and go into the liner. As we talk, these layers act as a conduit and really as a bed for the entire drainage system. Here in this photo, if you look at the left, you can see a conventional bunker with no liner. In the middle one, you can see a very thin layer type liner, and on the far right one, you can see the entire bed of gravel or concrete or whatever product or asphalt that is, allowing that drainage bed across the whole bottom of the bunker. And you can see why the radial slides don't happen in those types of bunkers. Edges are always a challenge. From a contamination, so we're starting to see we've now taken the bunkers up from, now we've got it figured out how we keep them from washing out, from being contaminated. So now the next thing is we don't want any contamination in, so we're seeing how do we protect the edges and get rid of 100% of the contamination. We're seeing a thatched edge. We're seeing sand coming up. This is really all on preference on what each superintendent may like or not like, or what the membership may like. Some want exposed edges, some don't. So you're going to have to work together with your membership and what the end goal is and what the expense is going to be. You can roll the sod over the edge. You can bring the sand right up to and over the sod to protect the edge. It doesn't give you that clean edge look that sometimes people want the edged bunker 2 inches or something. But we're seeing more and more of the sod rolled over the edges. The opportunity to put in a plastic edge. There's a couple different products out with plastic type edging. There's temporary edges where people can build them out of masonite siding or masonite, things like that. We don't see those holding up real well. The burlap bags, The burlap bags are great to start with. The sod rolls over them well, the sod grows into them well. Over time, the burlap bags are going to decompose and probably wouldn't be an area that I would recommend from our experience as an edge tool, although it's short term and it does work in the short term. We used to see bunkers that were the stacked sod bunkers, and really neat look, fun look. But the problem with them, you had to rebuild stacked sod all the time. With the flat bottom in them, they really didn't get contaminated. It was pretty easy to control the water draining into them because there wasn't any. So the sand was kept really clean. You probably didn't need a bunker liner in the bottom of them, but rebuilding them, it was often. Now we're starting to see some of the revetted bunkers, the artificial turf bunkers, and they don't have to be rebuilt. They're fairly expensive, no doubt, but they last as well. And you have a choice of whether you have to put a liner in the bottom of the bunker or not. With the flat sand, there's less need for it. At the end of the day, drainage inside, the internal drainage is real critical. And the last one is railroad ties. Railroad ties are an option. We've seen quite a few of them. You used to see them back in the day. Seen a few more projects with railroad ties laid back. It's a way for somebody to be able, for the architect to be able to see the bunker, flash it up without having to flash sand, and have a flat bottom in the bottom of the bunker. It all comes down to the look and what you'd like to do. So if you're what your membership wants and what you would, with that, I'm going to pass it on to Adam, who's going to talk a little bit about maintenance. Adam, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much, Judd. And again, thanks everyone for their attention up to this point. We've really covered a fair amount of material on bunker construction and different liner types, and even a little on sand selection. So now let's dive into the maintenance side of things. Really, it doesn't matter how you build a bunker, or the type of sand that you purchase and install, or even the golfer's preference at your course. Every bunker requires some level of maintenance, and certainly some are a little bit more intensive than others, depending upon the expectations at your facility. The challenge that we all face really is when it comes to playability and expectations for bunkers, moisture plays a major role in that. And there's only so many things that we can control. So bunkers that are exposed to more sun, are typically drier than those that are shaded. If you get coverage with irrigation unintentionally, that's going to play a role in how it sets up. And then finally, the time of day, things like that, whether it's exposed to predominant winds, all these things are potentially out of our control. The things we do have control of are really how we maintain the bunkers. What's our raking method? How do we make sure that the bunkers are playing as best as possible based on our resources? So as Jerry mentioned really in the beginning of the presentation, sand depth plays a major role in how the bunkers are going to set up and play, in particular with moisture retention. This graph shows a soil moisture release curve or moisture column test of a single sand, and really what it shows you is that at different depths with a single sand, it's going to have a different moisture level. So these are some neat tests that can really help you determine, what's the proper depth for the sand that you're using in the bunker construction method that you're using at your course. Certainly, as we moved through the presentation and got into some of the more recent trends in bunker construction, we've been noticing courses dealing with wet bottoms of their bunkers, perhaps more so than ever before. And there's a couple of factors involved with that, and we'll touch on that. Certainly increasing the sand depth, like I just mentioned, can play a role, but based on the cost of some of the sands that are being used, there comes a point where we look at other alternatives besides just adding more sand. So let's dive into that. As Judd mentioned, some of the newer liner methods that are out there that are allowing water to move in that are permeable, some of the porous materials can create really a perched water table. That's just sort of, when you think about the design, it makes a lot of sense because in some of these, they're very similar to a USGA green where you've got a coarse gravel layer beneath a sand layer. And that's creating a textural difference between those two, which results in, once the sand is saturated, water drains through. But if it's not saturated, you're creating a little bit of a layer that is going to stay wet at the interface between the liner and the sand. So a few different ways that courses have tried to combat the perched water tables are out there, certainly using a little bit of a different construction technique. The image in the top left really shows where in the main drainage area of that bunker, where the drain lines are, they actually don't have a liner, and they've just got the liner more so on the slopes to minimize erosion and protect that sand. But they don't have that liner in the middle of the bunker, so it allows for free drainage. And the same is fairly consistent with the image on the bottom. A little bit different where the liner isn't used everywhere, but again, that low point, it does have spots for free drainage to occur. Some other ideas, some sort of hybrids or ways to create free drainage within the bunker. The image, the two on the top there are really showing a combination of the bunker solutions method and the better Billy bunker. So you minimize that overall amount of perched water table to help encourage water to break through the layer of the porous material and get into the drain lines and then out of the bunker. The image towards the bottom is where a course really created a separate drainage outlet in the low point where, again, they broke through that drainage layer to allow for free drainage. Other things to think about with sort of alternate drainage techniques that are out there, again, sand depth will play a major role, but the cost is usually a limiting factor, which is why some courses are looking at these different drainage techniques. The top image is really showing a fair amount of lateral drain lines extending up the slope of the bunker. In most cases, we're seeing more of the wet issues really in the bunker floors, in the slopes. So adding more drainage up the slopes may not actually solve the issue. The middle image is showing where the drain lines are actually sunk a little bit lower than typical. And as a result, they actually don't stay quite as wet for quite as long. So that's still a newer technique. Many of these are really newer techniques that we're still learning more about and revising, how best to install them to be cost effective and really, again, address some of the issues with the perched water tables. That last image towards the bottom really shows one of the newer techniques that I think is perhaps most promising, where the actual drain pipe is above the liner. So the liner has gone all the way down all the drain lines. The key here is to make sure that if you're using perforated pipe, that it's covered with a fabric that's appropriately sized. Some courses have used the white ABS pipe with holes facing down. So lots of different ways to go about this, but you want to make sure that if you are using corrugated pipe, to make sure that that fabric is properly sized. One of the challenges that we all face is, hearing golfers complain about inconsistent conditions. We can only do so much. You look at this bunker and it was probably prepared really nicely, and then the first few groups go through and this is the end result. So there are certainly some challenges that, again, we can't overcome this aspect of it. We're trying, but when it comes to inconsistencies, there is a player component involved here. So thinking about maintenance practices, definitely new trends that we're seeing are increased use of the Aussie raking method, where really the floors are raked on a fairly regular basis and the edges are smoothed, whether that being with a broom, a squeegee of some sort, or even the backside of a rounded bunker rake. This raking technique offers a great ability to keep the edges, the slopes firm so a ball hits and releases, and then also you can reduce your overall raking frequency in that area and thus save some resources. So really a great combination of improved playability and some cost savings in a lot of cases. We still see a tremendous amount, as Jerry mentioned early on. Labor is a major challenge. So whatever we can do to eliminate hand labor is really helpful to the bottom line in your budget. So things like the leaf attachments on the mechanical bunker rake are fantastic, can produce a great finished surface, but they may end up resulting in a firmer surface over time, so you may still have to do some cultivation over time. So modifying your mechanical rake, the U-bolts are a great attachment to every once in a while stir things up. You could also use the top image there showing a leveling device attached to the rake to help manage your depths. And then there's even some neat tools out there to help you manage your sand depths or monitor your sand depths. And that's a crucial practice to do on a regular basis for your bunkers. Ultimately, the sand is really going to set up, how it plays, but we can go too far with our raking. If we over rake sand, we can create soft conditions, and no one likes the buried lies, right? That's always going to result in an email and some frustrated golfers. So we want to avoid that. But on the other side, we also want to try to minimize the potential for ultra firm conditions, which can lead to algae forming at the surface or maybe even just beneath the surface. So a couple different ways to do that, whether you're stirring it up with mechanical bunker rakes, but when you think about it, you're setting yourself up for the potential for algae simply because if you have wet sand and hot temperatures, that's the perfect environment. The same thing goes with a pool. You're going to have some algae if you're letting things stay stagnant and stay wet for long periods of time. So there are methods out there or different products that you can try to apply to your bunker sands to reduce algae. I think the best solution in a lot of cases is really just to continue to stir them up so they don't become stagnant and that algae doesn't form. But again, all these factors, the liners, the construction methods, the sand depth, and the raking method all play a role in the potential for algae and wet conditions. Finally, let's talk about edging, and certainly Judd touched on this a little bit. You can go too far with kind of the natural look of your bunker. I would say more times than not, this is typically what we see. People that are maybe just a little bit overzealous, or as Judd mentioned, not necessarily always the best employee, has this job of going out and edging the bunkers, can lead to a lot of problems with sand contamination. They are extremely critical, so do whatever you can to focus your resources on keeping that turf on the edges as healthy as possible, because it really prevents contamination of the sand. Again, string trimmers, fly mowers are most typically the tools that are used for these areas. And again, do whatever you can to keep these spots healthy and try to get the people on your staff that are really good at doing this. I know it's a labor-intensive and a challenging and sometimes thankless job, but it's really, really important. So acknowledge their success when they're doing a good job, because it's only going to sort of foster that continued high-quality product in the end of the day. Just like I mentioned early, ultimately you still need to plan for annual maintenance, whether that's adding new sand, occasional edging, things like that. Even maintaining the edge, the grass slopes to keep things healthy and performing well. Brand new bunkers are only going to be brand new for a short time period, so you need to focus resources on continuing to maintain them and making sure that everything around them is as healthy as possible, because once you lose structure of those areas, it can really be a quick drop off from there. And then I think an important opportunity, and I know many of you are probably already doing this, but I would really focus some time to document how much time and money is being spent on your bunkers. That is tremendously valuable when you start talking about how they're playing and how you can potentially improve the bunkers. So understanding every aspect of maintenance, whether that be, hand raking, machine raking, edging, string trimming, mowing around them, that's only going to help, document, again, the return on investment to potentially improving the bunker sands. The biggest opportunity, I think, is documenting how much time and money you're spending on repairing washouts. That's, as Jerry mentioned, that is a very, morale-killing job. And when you determine that you could potentially rebuild your bunkers and have a return on that investment in just a few years and have this type of playability, it's a no-brainer for a lot of courses once they sit down and crunch the numbers. And the beauty of this, some of the newer construction methods out there, they're really going to minimize the erosion potential and hold up even when it rains. So in conclusion, to sort of wrap up the entire seminar, sand selection is really important. Even if you have the best construction method out there, if you don't have the right type of sand, your bunkers are probably not going to meet your player expectations. So thinking about that is really important. Design is critical, making sure the slopes don't go past the angle of repo. Drainage, both around the bunker, within the bunker, making sure drainage is exiting that bunker. And so again, lots of construction methods and edging methods that are out there. There isn't a one-size-fits-all method that is perfect for everyone. So do your homework. You've got resources out there to determine, what's best for your facility. Certainly the three of us are available for questions at any point.
Well, thank you for your time today, Jerry, Judd, and Adam. And thanks to all of you who joined us. Please complete the session evaluation as you exit. Your feedback makes a difference. As a reminder, education points will be awarded for overall GIS attendance according to your registration package. We'd like to once again thank our sponsor of this seminar, Links Bridges. Be sure to visit the GCBA Education Partner Pavilion for more information. Thank you.